My daughter Lily has always been the sweetest, most kind-hearted child. Ever since she was little, she had an uncanny ability to make friends, and no matter where we lived, she was always the one to bring people together. So when we moved to a new town, I wasn't concerned at all. In fact, I was relieved to see her settle in so easily. She quickly found a small group of kids at her new school who seemed to adore her, and I couldn't have been more pleased. But it wasn't long before I started noticing strange things happening. It was subtle at first, small shifts in Lily's behavior. She became more withdrawn, quieter than usual, and there were days when she'd come home from school looking pale and tired, her eyes wide with something I couldn't quite put my finger on. She'd still tell me about her day, but there was always something in her voice that didn't sit right. It was as though she was holding something back. I brushed it off as typical preteen angst, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. One evening, about 3 months after we moved, I received a call from the school. It was the principal, and he sounded unusually serious. He asked if I could come in to discuss an incident involving Lily and one of her classmates. My stomach sank. I had no idea what this was about, but I knew immediately that I needed to be there. I agreed to meet him after picking up Lily, and as I hung up the phone, I felt my anxiety grow. When I picked up Lily, she was unusually quiet. She refused to look me in the eye and barely spoke as we made our way to the school. I tried to ask her what happened, but she remained silent, staring out the window with a faraway look. I could tell something was off, but no matter how hard I tried to get her to talk, she wouldn't say a word. Arriving at the school, I was led into the principal's office, where I was greeted by a stern-faced man. He asked me to sit down, and he immediately began with a series of questions. "How has Lily been at home? Has she been acting differently?" he asked. "Has she seemed more distant, withdrawn, or upset lately?" I answered as honestly as I could, explaining that she had been acting a bit off, but nothing that raised any red flags. The principal then told me that Lily had been involved in a troubling incident with another student, a boy named Jason. He explained that they had been in the hallway after school hours and that something had happened between them that resulted in Jason getting hurt. Apparently, Jason had suffered a few bruises and Lily was the one who had caused them. I was in shock. Lily? Violent? That didn't make sense. She was always the peacemaker, the one who tried to stop arguments, not start them. I immediately asked the principal for more details. What exactly had happened? He told me that there were no direct witnesses to the incident, but both kids had given matching accounts of what had taken place. According to Jason, he had been playing a game with Lily when she suddenly became upset and pushed him against the lockers, causing him to fall and hit his head. Lily's reaction was also described as completely uncharacteristic, angry and aggressive, when she had always been so gentle. I was dumbfounded. None of this sounded like the daughter I knew. Lily didn't seem upset about the situation at all. In fact, when I asked her about it, she simply said, "It's not what you think, Mom." Her voice was calm, almost too calm, and that only made me more uneasy. I didn't press her further, not wanting to upset her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As we left the principal's office, I tried to get Lily to talk. She remained quiet for the rest of the evening, and I could see the tension in her face. She barely touched her dinner and went straight to bed without her usual bedtime chat. As I sat there in the living room, I couldn't stop thinking about what the principal had said. Something about it didn't sit right with me. I decided that night I would go through her school bag, hoping to find something that might shed light on what had really happened. To my surprise, I found a small notebook hidden deep in her bag, something I hadn't seen before. The pages were filled with doodles and scribbled thoughts, but there was one entry that caught my attention. It was a drawing of Jason, but it wasn't a typical sketch of a friend. The figure in the drawing had hollow eyes, and its face was twisted in a grotesque grin. Beneath the drawing, Lily had written, "He made me do it." My heart skipped a beat. I immediately went to Lily's room, hoping to talk to her, but when I opened the door, she was sitting up in bed, staring at the wall with an expression I'd never seen on her before. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, and her mouth hung slightly open. It was as if she wasn't even aware that I was there. I gently called her name, and she turned her head slowly, almost mechanically, to look at me. Her gaze was cold, but my anger didn't end there. I wasn't going to let this slide. That night, after Mia went to bed, I decided to call Ethan's mother. Her name was Sarah, and when she answered the phone, her voice was soft and warm, almost too warm. She apologized immediately, saying that she had heard about the incident and had already spoken to Ethan about it. She said that Ethan had confessed the truth and that he felt terrible for what he had done. It all seemed too perfect, like she was trying to brush the situation under the rug. I didn't believe her. Something felt off about the whole conversation. How could Ethan have confessed so quickly, and why was his mother being so calm about everything? It didn't add up. I pressed her for more details, but she kept telling me that everything had been taken care of and that Mia should just move on from it. The next day, I met with the principal again. I wanted to make sure that Mia wouldn't be blamed for something that wasn't her fault. When I arrived at the school, I saw Sarah standing in the hallway, talking to the principal. She gave me a strange look as I walked past her, but I didn't pay much attention. The principal assured me that the matter was resolved, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more going on beneath the surface. Over the next few weeks, Mia acted differently. She seemed more withdrawn, quieter than usual, and she didn't talk much about Ethan or the other kids at school. When I asked her about it, she would just shrug and say everything was fine, but I knew it wasn't. I kept watching Ethan and his mother from a distance, and the more I observed them, the more I began to feel that something was wrong. Then, one afternoon, I overheard Mia talking to one of her friends on the phone. Mia didn't know I was listening, but I couldn't help but hear her mention something strange. "Ethan says we have to be careful," she whispered. "He says if anyone finds out what happened, we'll both get in trouble." My blood ran cold. It sounded like Ethan was still trying to control her, still manipulating her, and I couldn't let it continue. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't trust Sarah or the principal anymore, and I wasn't going to let Ethan continue his twisted game with my daughter. I started paying closer attention to Mia's interactions with Ethan, and I began to notice small things that didn't sit right with me. There was something darker going on, something far more sinister than I had initially realized. One night, after Mia had fallen asleep, I went through her things. I wasn't proud of what I was doing, but I needed answers. And that's when I found it. A small note hidden inside the back of one of her notebooks. The note was from Ethan. It read, "You'll regret it if you tell anyone about the game. I can make your life miserable." The handwriting was unmistakable. Ethan had been threatening her all along. I knew then that I had to put an end to this. Mia wasn't just dealing with a bad influence at school. She was dealing with someone who was far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. And as much as I wanted to confront him, I knew that the real fight was just beginning.